You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So I had a cold open ready, having to do with Green Arrow, but then big breaking news. But I'm going to go ahead and do the cold open, and then we can talk about the news when we come back. So my cold open is from a tweet that Stephen Amell posted. And it was a very interesting tweet. It seems that he was in the Seattle airport and was running through the terminal trying to make his connecting flight. And somehow he barreled into a young man who I believe actually hurt his shoulder, at least from the way it reads. And it turns out this young man was very awestruck when he realized who it was that ran into him, because he was at that moment on his tablet watching the pilot episode of Arrow. So that had to be weird. You have failed the city. Oh, I'm sorry, what? So Amell tweeted this out yesterday. Said, this tweet goes out to the kid who was watching the pilot of Arrow that I almost flattened while sprinting through the Seattle airport trying to catch my connecting flight. I'm really sorry, and I hope your shoulder is okay. If at any point you need me to show up and threaten some people or talk you up to a young lady, I'm there. In full suit. Now, how cool is that? If in the back pocket you have the ability to get Stephen Amell to come hang out with you for something. I'm thinking chaperone for prom night. I don't know. Just him in the full Green Arrow suit standing in the corner going, you have failed this auditorium. I don't know. That just seems funny to me. Stay tuned. We got big news and the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Tuesday, June 27th, and again, we have some big breaking news. This news is about an hour old now, but this may be the first you hear of it, especially Triple B who's driving home. My first news story today was going to be about James Gunn and how during last week he had multiple actors and actresses come in and do extended screen tests, and that each one of them had a 2-week contract for these screen tests and stuff like that. And they teamed them up too. And if I remember the teams correctly, it was Nicholas Hoult, who played Beast in the X-Men and was recently in Renfield, paired with Rachel Brosnahan, who, of course, is the marvelous Ms. Maisel, Tom Brittany and Phoebe Dynevor, and, of course, the final pairing was David Cornsweet and Emma Mackey. And they did this scenes together as Lois and Clark. And then the next day, all the guys were brought back and put into the Superman costume. And then they would work off of Lois again. But on the second day, they only brought Emma Mackey back. They didn't bring back Phoebe or Rachel. So, wait, that suddenly sounds like a Friends cast reunion. Phoebe and Rachel. Anyway, too bad it's not Monica Mackey. Anyway, getting back to track here. So that was the big thing. And people were like, well, maybe you can read into something that Emma Mackey was the only one coming back. Nope, turns out you couldn't, because as of just before 1 o'clock today, Pacific time, it was announced the new Superman and the new Lois Lane. David Cornsweet is the new Superman, who is somebody that fans have been, fan casting this guy for a while. And you look at him and you're like, yeah, I could see it. Absolutely, I could see it. And he was in The Politician. He's done the movie Pearl. We Own This City. He was in that. He was in, like I said, The Politician. He'd done an episode of House of Cards, 7 episodes of Hollywood. So he's still a somewhat newcomer, but he's got a little bit of cred behind him. Playing, and he's 29 years old right now, so he's that age range that they were looking for. Playing opposite of him is Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan, who you probably recognize from The Marvelous Miss Maisel. But she had also been a regular on House of Cards for a while. She's done a lot of good stuff. The Courier, 50 States of Fright, Elena of Avalor, 15 Years Later. She's been working for quite some time now. She's a little bit older, and they like to do that with Lois. And they always like to have Lois just a little bit older. She's about 3 years older than David. So she's 32 right now. He's 29. So there it is. You have your new Superman, Clark Kent, and Lois. And if you're wondering, well, this is just a news report, right? This wasn't a big announcement from Warner Brothers. If you go to James Gunn's Twitter page, where he confirms and denies everything, he retweeted the story on The Hollywood Reporter with the words accurate. And that not only are they great actors, but they're good people. So this is confirmed by James Gunn. We have a new Superman and Lois. And it's kind of interesting why they would let it out this way. And there's a couple reasons. They could have done a big press conference. They could have brought them out and introduced them. And there's a lot of things they could have done. But doing it this way, gets the announcement out there before the actors strike, which is something they were concerned about. This is they wouldn't have been able to keep doing the testing. They had to get the casting done now, or on June 30th, when the SAG-AFTRA contract expires, they wouldn't be able to cast anybody. So, and since the script is already done, they want to be able to start moving forward. Well, they want to lock in their cast. So don't be surprised if we hear in the next couple of days, or within 4 days, who Lex Luthor is going to be. Now, the short list for Lex Luthor is interesting because one of the people on the list is Nicholas Hoult, who just was just up for Superman. Now, did he take himself? I'm not sure how it would, because he was originally being considered for Lex, and then suddenly he was being considered for Superman. And I kind of got the impression that was his pushing of himself, that he wanted to play Superman, which is really interesting because previously he had gotten beat out for Robert Pattinson, the role Robert Pattinson just got as Batman. So supposedly Nicholas Hoult was the runner-up in the Batman. So he's now been beaten out as Batman and Superman. So if he gets Lex Luthor, great. If not, there's plenty of other DC heroes he could just miss out on being cast as. Rachel Brosnahan is probably the biggest name of any of them that they're looking at. So that's interesting that they brought her in. Marvelous Miss Maisel just ended. So you've got that bit of a name. But then the other thing is with Lex Luthor, besides Nicholas Hoult, they're looking at 2 of the Skarsgårds as possibility. Now, the 2 they're looking at are Alexander and Bill. So Bill, who just played Pennywise in It, Alexander, of course, who was on True Blood. So this could start becoming a really interesting cast. And if they can get all that locked in before the strike, then they can move forward on a lot of stuff. They can quickly do fittings and stuff, get measurements and start building costumes and a lot of the stuff that they can still do even though there's a strike. So now let's see if I missed any of the comments here. So Triple B is driving home. Hey, Triple B. Hey, Ed, good to see you. Let the whining begin. I don't know. I mean, this is going to be met with some whining, because people still want Henry Cavill. I texted Lisa, said, hey, here's a new Superman. And she was, I still like Henry. He's not as cute. Okay. But a lot of people were fan casting David Cornsweet. So in a way, the fans may feel somewhat attached to this guy, because like I said, you look around and a lot of people were fan casting this guy. It's like, I only learned of him as an actor because of that. I hadn't seen a lot of the stuff he'd been. I've seen it since because I'm trying to take a look to see who this guy is. But yeah. So there's a good chance that they're going to be a little not as bad with him because it's kind of like John Krasinski. If Marvel came in and cast John Krasinski, you wouldn't hear a lot of negativity about it because, that's who the fans wanted. If they cast somebody else, they're probably going to get negativity. So Jay says, Ed, they whined about Reeves, Routh, Cavill, Hochland. People will never be happy. Right. I mean, they whined about Michael Keaton. They whined about Val Kilmer. I think the only one they didn't whine about was George Clooney, and look how that one turned out. Look how much they whined about Robert Pattinson. Oh my God, the Twilight guy. How did you end up with the Twilight guy? Oh my God. So yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see how this is going to play out. Hey Josh, good to see you. Coming from a huge Cavill fan, even before Supes, I got more Superman, so I'm happy. Yep, there you go. So yeah, I think this guy's going to be fine. I think he's got the look. And let's just back up here. There's so much negativity right now going towards DC. And a lot of it is coming from the Snyder fans because they still want that universe to continue. And it's not. DC is moving on from that. All the people that made those decisions are gone. That universe is being put out to pasture. And it would already be put out to pasture if they didn't have 4 movies in the can that they were waiting to put out. Now, DC has not handled this well. Warner Brothers has not handled this well. They're still getting the mistakes of the old regime, but it's getting on Safran and Gunn. When it first came out that Peter Safran and James Gunn were taking over DC, everybody was excited because they look at the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They look at the Suicide Squad movies. They look at Aquaman that Peter Safran produced, and they go, those were good movies. They made lots of money. I mean, okay. The Suicide Squad that Gunn didn't make much money, but they did them dirty by putting it out on HBO Max instead of just in theaters. But all of that negativity that's starting to build up is, Cavill was told he was back, and then he was not. Well, it wasn't James Gunn who told him he was back. It wasn't Peter Safran who said it either. They didn't tell him to do that. They were moving forward with the idea of moving on to a new Superman. It was part of the deal they made. So how that all happened doesn't fall on Gunn and Safran. Gunn is still the guy that made Peacemaker and Guardians of the Galaxy, these movies that people love. We just saw Guardians 3 and everybody, it was very well received. So I don't. I think people need to take a step back and accept the fact the Snyder Cut is gone, or the Snyder universe is gone. It's not coming back. Being angry about it and trying to sabotage other movies is not going to help bring it back. If anything, it's just going to hurt us getting movies with these characters, you know? And you love Henry Cavill as Superman, you loved Christopher Reeves as Superman. Maybe you'll love David Cornsweet as Superman. People didn't like Brandon Routh at first, and now they love him as Superman. It's that just this is happening. It's time to accept it and move forward. Okay? You're not getting the Snyderverse back. There may be some characters that carry over, like Peacemaker and Amanda Waller, because they're part of what James Gunn is trying to do, because he's already started it with some stuff. But and there's no guarantee those aren't going to change too. But you're going to have to just move forward. You know. Let's see. Ed says if it was Kevin Feige, he'd make Cavill Batman just to put it in our faces. He'd make Cavill like. Well, no, that's the thing is that Feige didn't make any missteps. He made his cast changes when he needed to, like with Don Cheadle and Terrence Howard, or, But overall, Ed Norton and Mark Ruffalo. But overall, he's stuck to his guns, made the movies he wants to make, and I think that's the attitude that James Gunn needs to have. Just put out what he thinks are going to be good movies, and people are either going to come to them or not. Figure says Zaslav said that Flash was the best superhero movie of all time, while Gunn said is one of the best of all time. Lying like that to sell a movie which they should have known would fail is not good. They didn't know it was going to fail. And if you actually look at the critic scores versus the audience scores, the audience actually seems to like the movie. Last time I checked, it was like 85, 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. So what I've seen of the movie, I've seen about half the movie. The CG is not great. But the story, it's not a bad story. I think that there was some problems, but is it the greatest superhero movie of all time? No. Was David Zaslav hyping it, trying to get people in the theater? Yeah. That's called his job. His job is to get people in the theater. And Gunn saying it was one of the best that he's seen. Well, producer Kyle thinks Shazam 2 was one of the best superhero movies he's seen. So you can't take other people's words for it. It's not be lying. Maybe he really does think that. Maybe he doesn't. And I think it overhyped it. It definitely, they didn't need to come out and say that. But like I said, for some people, maybe it is. Hard to say. Josh says, Snyder fans are searching for the anti-life equation to keep it as is. Gunn is the Mr. Miracle trying to break us out of the DCEU apocalypse. Nice. Nicely done, Josh. Look, as much as the people who are fans of the universe that Zack Snyder created, it was a matter of diminishing returns. Superman did well. Batman v Superman didn't do as well. Justice League didn't do as well as those two. They were losing, going down, down, down. Wonder Woman did well, but that wasn't, that was a little bit of Snyder. But by then they were starting to change it. Aquaman was very not Snyder. It was Jason Momoa, and that was probably the best received one, but it was a much lighter tone. From there, the movies afterwards, the first Shazam did well, but it was an absolute joke. It was nothing like a Snyder movie. And then we get stuff like Black Adam and Shazam 2, and the movies just start, Wonder Woman 1984. And the bottom line is there's so many bad movies associated with it now, is you need a fresh slate. If I was Gunn and Safran, I would just completely, say, look, starting with Superman Legacy, everything is new. I'm not keeping any of the actors. Now, I know he wants to keep John Cena, the Peacemaker, stuff like that, but I would go with a completely blank slate. And I probably wouldn't have announced it until after these 4 movies came out. But they need to put these movies out to make money, but they also need to show that they've got some kind of control over the properties, which they hadn't been showing. So, Figure says, my point is hubris. I think Gunn specifically, should have known better. I think he was trying to hype the movie. And like I said, it might be one of the best to him. It's hard to tell. He's got some weird taste in movies if you ever look at his list. But again, I'm not worried about what he said about The Flash. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does as the head of the studio and with what he does as Superman Legacy. Because if he starts making good movies, that's all that matters. It's all that really matters. If he's making good movies, and we've seen him make good movies, Guardians of the Galaxy, all 3 of those are good movies. There's a consistency to them. They're good, strong movies. That's the other thing with the DC stuff. They couldn't make consistent movies. They were all over the place. So, let's see. Ed says, the younger Barry looks so much like Jimmy Fallon that I was laughing. Yeah, now I can see that now. Figure says, Gunn actually has made some of the best superhero movies of all time, though. One would think he would have a different perspective on all-time movies. Most creators, there's about 50-50. A lot of creators think their stuff is great, but there's a good number of creators who, once they create something, hate it. Will never put their own work up in the best of all time. They can't. It's just not their nature. So Ed says, I love the 2 Shazam movies. They were refreshing to me, and I really enjoyed them. Cool. I love that, Ed. I love that you liked both those movies. So Fig says, I agree 100% total reboot. Jay Nunez says, Blue Beetle ain't looking good. I thought the trailer was interesting. That's one that I think the expectations are low, so it might actually succeed because no one expects it to be good. Hello, Larissa. And let's see. Jay says, I save my judgment till I'm in the theater. Superman isn't Star-Lord, right? Shazam and Ant-Man are really fun. I liked both of them a lot. Yeah. See, now, I actually liked Quantumania. Was it great? No, but I enjoyed it. I laughed. There were some key moments I really enjoyed. I loved seeing Hank Pym kick ass. That meant a lot to me. That was awesome. So, guys, I think we're going to throw out the topic today because this news. So when we come back, I've still got some other news to cover, but we'll keep talking about the Superman casting and your comments and stuff, and we'll just go with that. So we'll be right back with more on the Superman casting.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. We are talking today about the announced casting of Superman and Lois. If you just joined us, Superman is David Cornsweet and Lois is Rachel Brosnahan. Hoping I'm getting their names right. Those are not normal names. But so we've been just chatting with chat. Ed asks, are you going to do a Blue Beetle show like you did with Black Adam? I have no idea who Blue Beetle is. Absolutely. Not only will I do the show, but I will do it about Dan Garrett, Ted Kord, and Javi Reyes, all of the Blue Beetles through history, so you'll have a good understanding of what it is, because I think all of them are going to play a part in the movie, which is also why I think it's possible that the movie's going to do well, because it's tapping into the legacy of the character. Fig says, I am worried about WB potentially pulling too many strings. That's all. Like the on-purpose bad CGI. Do they think fans are that stupid? Yeah, that one, I finally got a chance to read that in context, and it's like, really? That's a rough one. It really is. So Jay says, what I mean by that is Star-Lord wasn't as well known as Gunn made him. And Gunn made him popular, changed up his origin, just like Peacemaker and Vigilante. You can't really do that with Superman. No. But if you follow the rumors at all, it's believed that besides Superman, Lois, and Lex, the movie will also have the Authority in it. And the Authority is somebody you can change stuff up with, because very few people know who the Authority are. They're interesting characters, and it would give an opportunity to show who Superman is in contrast to them. A lot of people were upset by the Man of Steel, the 2 scenes, one of which where Clark let Jonathan die because Jonathan told him not to. Don't show off your powers, let me die, which is still one of the stupidest things. I like a lot of the stuff Snyder did. I hated that. And the second thing, of course, was him killing General Zod, which I don't actually have as big a problem with, because I can see a character growing. He doesn't have to be the Superman we meet or we know today. It doesn't have to be him in the beginning. He can grow into that character. But those two things. So, what better way to show the strength of Superman by showing the opposite of him with the Authority? Midnighter and Apollo. Oh yeah, that's Authority. I had them confused in my head for a minute with Manchester Black's group. So, but yeah, they could do great stuff with Midnighter and Apollo, and was it Jay Hawksmoor, the architect or the engineer, whatever her name is. Oh, the Elite. Thank you. Yeah, I was confusing them with the Elite. Okay, so yeah, but you can see that the Authority is much more the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, where Superman is much more, no, we save everybody. So again, it's an interesting dichotomy between the two. But JD Artist says, I'll be honest, the magic of Superman or Batman movie just isn't there for me anymore. Rebooting every decade has burned me out, but I hope everyone has fun. That's fair enough. I agree. I thought, but then I thought that too with Spider-Man. When suddenly Marvel was going to do another Spider-Man movie, I'm like, this is the third one in like 15 years. That's ridiculous. And instead, I really like Tom Holland's take. So if it's a good movie, it's a good movie. I didn't think we needed another Batman, but I really liked Matt Reeves' Batman movie. So, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Fig says, I wish Gunn Superman was a high-end series rather than a movie, as they would play to Gunn's strength, character development. That said, I do look forward to the movie. Yeah. I think Warner Brothers is banking on Superman doing well. You got to remember, the company was in financial straits in the first place when they sold to Discovery, and they're trying to basically get their value back. So they did stuff like Barry, the Batgirl movie, and a couple other shows. They're licensing things out. They're letting a Superman cartoon go elsewhere. They're letting a Batman cartoon go to Prime because they need the money. And then you're having multiple DC movies fail. Black Adam, then Shazam 2, and now The Flash. They need to start making some money back. So Blue Beetle isn't expected to make a lot of money, but if Aquaman doesn't come in with some good amount of money, there's going to be a problem. And, they might have to suddenly go low budget on Superman, Jonathan Kent's death made me more upset than Zod's death. Yeah, same here. Yeah, I just, that was just the dumbest scene ever. He could have had a heart attack. He could have went out and got him, brought him back, and has a heart attack while Clark's holding him. There's a lot of ways you could have done that better, but the whole no, let me die, and the dog's gonna die. Let me die. Just let me die. Stupid. Let's see. JD says I was so bored during Matt Reeves' Batman. Dan, how is that possible? I wasn't, but then I'm a murder mystery guy. To me, it was the mystery that got me, the intensity. Movie clicked for me. But then this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is James Gunn saying that The Flash was the best Superman or the best superhero movie he's ever seen. That might not have been a line. He might really have enjoyed it. So, because I liked the Batman, other people didn't. Some people like Quantumania, some people didn't. Again, I go back to Kyle likes Shazam 2, and that got pretty heavily panned. So Ed liked Superman 2. Let's see. Have you tried Superman and Lois? Such an awesome show. Little CW cheese, but it's really good. I used to watch all the CW shows. I know the characters of Lois and Clark from that, or Lois and Superman. I haven't tried the show itself because it was a point where after Crisis, I watched like the end of Black Lightning. I watched the end of The Flash that season. I watched the end of, and Arrow ended then. And then the next season came around, and I think Supergirl ended or was going to end, and I didn't have Arrow as kind of the hinge pin, and I wasn't covering it for anybody, so I just kind of let it all go, and I never went back. So JD says, I heard good word of mouth. Okay, about Superman and Lois. Yeah, I've heard great about the show, and that Tyler Hoechlin is just really good as Superman. I've seen clips from it. You watch things, you watch TikTok, and they play clips of everything. And the scene where Clark goes in to talk to the guy who what hit his son and pulled a gun on Lois, and just the way Clark deals with it, I thought was awesome. So John has either the heart attack or lives. Yeah. You didn't need to have him die from a freaking tornado. Matt, Figure thought Matt Reeves' Batman was dope. There you go. Ed says, I never thought of that. Gunn needs these old films to make money, so he has a budget to do what he wants to do. That'll be interesting what impact it will make. Exactly. That's why they're still hyping these movies and stuff, because if you want good superhero movies, they need the money. And right now, they're kind of scraping by. Warner Brothers can only put out a certain number of movies a year right now because they don't have unlimited pockets, So they need these movies to start making money. So, go see Blue Beetle. Go see Aquaman. If you want to see James Gunn's Superman, support these movies. JD says, nobody liked Ant-Man 3, Dan. That's simply not true. No, I did. I've watched it twice now and once with the director's commentary. But then I'm a Hank Pym fan, and seeing Hank Pym show up with all those ants, to me, was a kick-ass moment. Larissa says, I loved the first Superman. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Superman, Christopher Reeve Superman was brilliant in a lot of ways, but there was also some campiness to it, and I have a hard time rewatching it. But Christopher Reeves was great, and it was, for its time, an absolutely brilliant movie. Let's see, Jay says, nothing like how they were in the crossovers. Every episode feels like a mini movie. Nice. All right, Ed says, in my opinion, the Batman is by far the best DC film to come out so far. That is how Batman should be. No supernatural stuff, a solid mystery, solid fighting, and detective work. Love the Batman. Now, I'm with you on that, Ed. That's exactly the way I feel about it, and would love that series to continue. If you're going to expand it with ground level characters. You want to add another superhero, you can bring in the Question or Green Arrow, or somebody of that level, or Manhunter or somebody like that. You don't bring in a Superman. You don't bring in a Green Lantern. Just keep that away. They can exist. I mean, hell, they could even make him part of that universe. They could have, when he leaves the Batman, he could go be in part of that universe. But the Batman movies need to stay grounded. But no, they're going to have a different Batman of their own. So that part I'm not a big fan of. I don't like the fact that they have two different ones going at the same time, because I think the general populace will not understand that. Figure says DC should look to Marvel's special presentations. They are not huge budgets, but they are awesome and well received nonetheless. True. And they could absolutely do that for some smaller characters to introduce some characters. I think that's a great thing. They absolutely should do that. But you don't do that with Superman or Batman. Superman is a big budget movie. Yeah. It's why It's why Discovery bought Warner Brothers, because David Zaslav saw the Trinity of Heroes and that they needed to be better managed and better put out there. That was what he talked about. They are the prize in the whole thing. They're the reason they wanted Warner Brothers. Jay says, for me, Tyler is one of the best Clark Superman portrayals I've ever seen, next to Christopher Reeves. Okay. Any news on the Actors Guild strike? At this point, it is still moving forward. There hasn't been any new contract negotiations. So it's looking like June 30th is going to be, the strike's going to happen. That's why Gunn and them were pushing to get this done. Like I said, don't be surprised if we get a Lex Luthor announcement in the next couple of days. Figure says that's an awesome idea. Jay says, Figure, that's an awesome idea. Larissa says, I think that overall thought throughout my life, Batman continues to be the absolute most popular DC character because he has no superpowers. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. He's kind of a badass, and he's the person that we could all be just if we happen to win the lottery, and then had our parents murdered when we were young, and kind of late for them. I think my parents would be a little too old for them to be murdered now and have that effect on me. Yeah. I don't want anybody to murder my parents, by the way. You don't need to prove this one. Thanks. Figure says 100% DC cannot make a grounded, lower budget Superman, but it can work with some characters, as you said. Absolutely. There are an hour-long question special. By the way, DC, I'd write that one for free for you. Yeah, you could do things in the specials, take some characters and do some the question would be an amazing character to do in an hour-long special. Because it's a very grounded character. And, you got the face covered. So the stuntman can do most of the work as the question. Be like the Mandalorian, JD says, okay, I'll pay to see this one. Ed says, no, Ed, the Dan Knight rises. No, Ed, my mother's name is not Martha. So that would be funny, though. All right, guys, let's go ahead and we'll take our second break. And when we come back, we got some key collectibles, but I'll catch up on any other questions you guys have. So we'll be right back.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, no one really knows what John does. Don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. Seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. We are talking the casting news of Superman and Lois. David Cornsweet is now Superman, and Rachel Brosnahan is now Lois Lane. So we'll catch up on the final comments, and then we'll probably do the key collectibles. Let's see. Figure says DC has godlike main characters. They arguably makes it even more difficult to translate movies because of the competition from video games and comics. There's a truth to that. DC has always had mythological characters, whether from actual myths, but they do that. They do, sci-fi and godlike stuff, which does become difficult to do grounded. Batman and that little corner of the universe is about the only place they can do. So where Marvel can get away with it more because they have a lot more grounded characters. Even when you get somebody like Spider-Man, there's a certain on-the-ground street levelness to Daredevil and Moon Knight and Spider-Man. There's a street level feel to them where there isn't that many in DC. Triple B says Superman was my favorite superhero when I was a kid. Watching the old, you moved the thing. Loving them. I even loved those black and white TV shows. I agree with you, Triple B. I grew up watching those too on reruns and absolutely loved George Reeves as Superman. Larissa says, oh yeah, for sure. Injustice is a fantastic fighting game for the DC universe. It is. And Injustice would be tough to do as a movie because Superman is the bad guy, and that will upset a lot of people. Figure agrees. JD says, important Dan Knight Rises question, who will play Dan's boy Wonderful? Nice. Kyle, I had a feeling that would be the answer. I even have Max Fleischer cartoons, Triple B. Yeah, I do too. Those are awesome. So, all right, guys, we're going to do some key collectibles. These are the hot ones. These are the books that are moving up right now. So there's a website I get some of this information from called Key Collectibles. This is their list. So, all right, let's do this. Rhino's on the rise. The first appearance of the Rhino, Amazing Spider-Man 41 from 1966. This is going for $2,700 on the new end, $850 in the middle, $175 on the low end. We've got Amazing Spider-Man 19, first appearance of Mac Gargan. He doesn't become Scorpion until the next issue. This is where we meet him as Mac Gargan. This is a $1,300 comic on the high end, $130 in the low, $420 in the median. New Mutants 98 is on the climb. This, of course, is the first appearance of Domino, or Copycat as Domino, Deadpool and Gideon. High end on this is $400, low end is $40, median's about $120. The Night of the Prowler issue, Amazing Spider-Man number 78, first appearance of Hobie Brown as the Prowler. High end on this is $600, median's $180, low end is $60. People are grabbing this issue a lot. Batman 251. This is the issue that, besides having the amazing, iconic Neil Adams cover, this is the issue that kind of turns Joker from just being kind of a comical villain to a homicidal villain. This is where he does the switch and becomes Batman's true nemesis. This one goes for about $2,000 on the high end, $800 on the median, $200 on the low end. Star Wars Clone Wars, of course, number 1 from 2008. This is the first appearance of Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex. We know Ahsoka is going to have her own series. We believe Captain Rex will be appearing in it. $700 on the high end, $180 on the median, $60 on the low end. Wolverine number 1. This one's climbing up right now. This, of course, is the first Wolverine solo title. High end's $150, median's $50, low end is $15. And one of the worst covers we featured, I just don't know what's going on with this cover, but it's Amazing Spider-Man number 15, first appearance of Kraven the Hunter. Goes for about $3,400 on the high end, $1,400 in the median, $370 on the low end. Second appearance of the Chameleon. And then this one just keeps going up since Across the Spider-Verse came out. This is Ultimate Fallout number 4, the first appearance of Miles Morales. 500 on the high end, 150 in the median. Low end is 50. And the final one is Spider-Man 2099, also climbing since Spider-Verse came out. First appearance of Spider-Man 2099. High end is 20, median is 8, low end is 2. This is a good one to pick up right now. You can probably still get it pretty cheap if you go out there looking. All right, let's hit and see what other comments we got real quick. George Reeves is still my favorite Superman. I love how they did the show too. Again, semi-grounded. Agreed. I also appreciated Hollywoodland, which was the story of George Reeves as Superman, and with the fact that Ben Affleck played him, I thought was pretty interesting. The Max Fleischer cartoons are really cool. Yep. Ignore the first. No big deal. So, all right. So that was the big news today. Corin Sweat and Rachel Brosnahan. And again, Corin Sweat was kind of fan cast. And then when Rachel's name came up, people really seemed to like her as well. Emma Mackey, I thought, was getting some traction, especially since she's the one that came back to work with them the second day. My only problem with her is she looks so much like Margot Robbie that I think it would be weird to have them both in the same universe, assuming Margot Robbie sticks around. But yeah, that one, she's looked too much like Margot Robbie. And the other two, the other actress, Phoebe Devanore, seemed fine, but I really liked the idea of Rachel Brosnahan. I thought just the looks right, and they chemistry tested the hell out of these two, because this is going to be a Superman who, I don't think this is him first coming to Metropolis. This is going to be them together. So their chemistry is going to be really important. So Larissa says Netflix backed out of Comic-Con. Yikes. Actually, the majority of the studios have pulled out of Comic-Con. And the reason is that part of what makes a Comic-Con panel special is when they bring out these actors. You know, Marvel always does it. They bring out all the different actors in the DC and stuff like that. Well, if the actor strike happens on June 30th, and it isn't resolved by Comic-Con, the actors won't be able to do promotions. As part of the strike is they've agreed they're not doing promotional things like that. So if they didn't back out now, and then they had no actors and stuff for Comic-Con, the panels would be kind of sad. So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these studios and stuff backing out of Comic-Con. So Figure says she's a good actress. So yeah, I assume you're meaning Emma Mackey, who true. Josh says those Spidey books are probably rising in price because the speculators expect the Spider-Verse will increase. Yeah, it absolutely does. Larissa says, I have a 5-day badge for Comic-Con. Well, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to visit the Top Cow booth and a lot of the comic book booths. They're going to be there. There are probably still going to be some gaming booths. And I don't think they're not going to have the panels, but they're still going to have a presence. So there's probably still going to be some things going on. And if they get it resolved, you'll probably still see the actors show up, but they'll be at the Marvel booth and stuff like that. So JD says geeks are going to see this comic adaptations anyway. So I'm glad to hear the studios leave SDCC alone. Stop spamming us. Larissa says, yes, I will have a list of comics I am hunting. Very cool. So, all right, guys, you want to stick around today. We got some good shows. We've got, well, I will be back right after the break to do in stores this week with Kyle and Jay. We have some fun books coming up. We have a book that's an adaptation. It's like a continuation of the Creed movies. I didn't know they were doing that. We have a brand new book from horror master Steve Niles. We've got new James Bond, new Vampirella, some really good stuff. It was a pretty good week for comics. Also, after that will be Minute to Skim It, where the crew from Space Cadets will be going over some new books. And then we have the Mint Hunter. So we have a good lineup tonight. Stick around for all of that. If you came to talk about Warhammer and Combat Patrol, I will move that to tomorrow. So, because my Combat Patrol is done, if you can't see it, but it's over here. I'm ready to play. The rules are out. I'm excited. And I actually have a second Combat Patrol that I'm starting to build. So, yeah, here's the big guy from Combat Patrol. So I finished painting him and everything. But we'll go more in depth into that tomorrow. But, yeah. So we'll do Warhammer tomorrow. On Thursday, we will talk the latest episode of Secret Invasion, which should be good. Everybody that I know who saw the first 2 episodes said the second episode was better, and I loved the first episode. So, all right, guys. Thank you, Figure. Yeah, I'm still new to the figure painting, guys, but I'm getting there, I think. No, Grey Knights. This is a Nemesis Dreadnought. So, yeah, it goes with these guys are much smaller. Brotherhood Librarian. But the Tau do look badass, so I got to tell you. I almost went that direction. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. I will see you back in a few minutes for in stores this week, and then tomorrow to talk Combat Patrol. See you then.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.